So I'd like to chat about, I've learned quite a bit about how to make things personal, okay? It's not all in a good way. I'm not going to share everything, okay? But is the mic on? Are you want me to do the, okay. So this has come up a few times, and actually Jason even mentioned it in the opening about risk-taking, getting comfortable with risk-taking. And if we are going to, in marketing, if we're going to actually get to a personal level of connection with people and build a true, honest relationship with folks, we have to start taking risk. And we also have to be open to talking a bit about ourselves in a very vulnerable way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I did that at some of the brands that Jason mentioned. And but most importantly, I'm going to talk about the things that keep us from doing that keep us from making marketing personal. So let me get into the three things that get in the way of real storytelling, all right? And there's complexity, committee, and over-analysis. Let me talk about this a bit. First of all, let's cover complexity, all right? So I worked at a large global technology company to develop a simplification process, and the attorneys won't let me mention the name of the company. I'll just describe it as a international business machines company. But we got the brightest minds together and got in a room because we realized the stuff that we were sending out to people, we were really proud of it, but nobody knew what the heck we were talking about. So we said, we got to make this stuff simple. So here's what we came up with. Just take a minute and read that if you would. Look, anytime you take the word simple and you more than double the numbers of syllables in that word, you know, that should be a clue that you're heading in the wrong direction. But so often, the way things are set up in marketing, we tend to get more and more complex along the way. And that's one thing we got to stop. After working there for years, I came up with this idea that there's an inverse correlation actually with the number of slides in your presentation and your actual knowledge on what you're talking about. And that's what we do so often. We get nervous, we get anxious, and we say, let's just put more stuff in there, and then we'll look smarter. And we're heading in the wrong direction completely. Look, the second thing that gets in the way is committees, all right? This is actually a pretty young group, but just by show of hands, how many people have ever been in a committee meeting? Okay, a few people. All right, that's great. So for those of you who have not been in a committee meeting before, let me just walk you through the team and the roles here real quick. You have a facilitator, a scribe, a timekeeper, and a scapegoat. So a lot of times in the creative process, when we're putting a marketing plan together, we got to go through committees. And a committee, the idea is this process is going to help us improve how we connect with customers. But so often, committees end up being about taking credit, reducing risk, and placing blame. And that's nowhere for a comedy or a creative idea to live, and it's certainly not going to help us get more personal. So there's some things you need to think about, just how you have to manage those committees. And I've lost many years of my life dealing with committee meetings at some of these companies, and I've learned some ways to kind of keep everybody happy, but still get what I want out of it. And I'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow during the workshops. Also, during the workshops, if you, I will talk about some comedy. We can work on some comedy scripts tomorrow in the workshops. But let me get through this last piece here. Well, here's another example of a committee. Look, a few people know that Leonardo da Vinci had to take his work in front of a committee. And these are the notes he got back originally from the team. Look, there are over 1 million pieces of art in the Louvre, okay? Only one of them receives mail. Only one receives snail mail, tactile mail, and it's the Mona Lisa. And people write this woman that is you know, art, but they are so moved by just a mere connection walking through the Louvre that they will send her a love letter, all right? Now, can you imagine if some committee came in and started saying, wait, let's just, you know what, I want to keep legal happy here, guys. Let's just tweak this a bit. You know, let me make some minor notes. People who aren't even artists, you know, what if the HR team came in and said, look, we got to be mindful and make sure she's shown in a respected way and doesn't look like a dude, you know, what would happen? We wouldn't have Mona Lisa. So keep that in mind. Over-analysis, this is the last one here of the things I think that really kill any kind of creativity, or hope of having a real, actual personal connection. So when you think personal connection, personal product, what do you think of? That's right, a truck. Very good. All right. You guys, this is a sharp crew. Does anybody, one of my favorite personal ads is this one right here. Thank you. I got one person who's with me. Has anybody recognized this? All right. Jean-Claude Van Damme, Epic Split. All right. Yarby is going to demonstrate this for us afterwards, right out here. Yeah, we got the pull-away pants for you, brother. This is such a beautiful ad. It's amazing. Visually, it's amazing. But Jean-Claude Van Damme is talking about his career, and he, to me, I heard, and being a middle-aged guy, I hear, here's a guy who's kind of maybe at the twilight of his career, talking about some regrets, and he's doing it for a commercial, a national television commercial. But it connected me to the brand. He was willing to open up and share a bit, and I opened up to him that way, all right? And I got more, and I bought like 4 or 5 trucks. So that was probably a bad idea on my part. I shouldn't have gotten into that. But I can imagine that at some point when the genius who first said, let's do this idea, pitched it to the marketing committee, somebody said, well, look, how's this going to work with our funnel? Let's think about the funnel here. Look, I'm all for, marketing qualified leads. All of this stuff is exactly important. We need this. Jen was talking about this. Our business, we're about driving revenue. But let's not lose the connection along the way, right? Nowhere in here does it say people have self-identified as Jean-Claude Van Damme fans, okay? We cannot go and see, hey, this ad's going to work. They had to take the risk and try it out, and it was huge. It was an incredible success. So like in the first 2 months, it had like 84 million views in the first 2 months. And then this was like 2 or 3 years later, Adweek is still writing about it. How many times has that happened with a project you've worked on? So push yourself to take risk. And that's what I want to get into in a bit now, is just some things I've learned from improv on how I've gotten comfortable and how I've tried to change cultures to get a little more comfortable with risk taking so we can actually get personal and connect with folks. I do want to show, I'm not saying that analysis is important. It's definitely important. No question about that. Don't let it kill a great idea like Jean-Claude Van Damme, okay? That's all I'm saying here. This is a project that we did, again, just to kind of make everybody comfortable of what we were going to do with our campaign. It took about $60,000 and 3 months to test. And then my son, who's here, Matthew, did this spirograph, which actually led us to a better conclusion. So when I was at Cisco, we'd spend $2 million on all this relationship management software. And because of that investment, everybody needed now to justify that $2 million investment that they voted for. And that's what marketing came about. Marketing became about, let's just justify this huge software investment and make sure everything that we create gives us numbers that support that. And that's one of the risks of getting into analyzing things and trying to measure the wrong metrics. Okay, so this is a group. So, like Jason said, years ago I was working in marketing. I was a marketing guy, and then I realized I had a calling to work in comedy, and I very, very reluctantly started moving forward in that. And the first idea, a friend of mine told me, "Oh, you should go take an improv class. There's one in New York called the Upright Citizens Brigade." So I went in and met these people, and that's Amy Poehler there on your the second from your. She's the only woman up there. So, I mean, do I really have to explain this? That's what she looked like in '98 before SNL. Okay, and that's when I knew her. It was before Amy Poehler. But in improv, it's all about observation. You start, and as a comedy writer, when you start writing comedy, you learn, okay, you have to study people. You become a psychologist, and you have to watch people, and you watch their tics and the little funny things that they do, and then you start thinking about, why did they do that? What's behind this? And for me, I noticed pretense a lot. That's what came up, probably because I was working at IBM. But that's the one thing that kind of bugged me a lot. But pretty soon, it doesn't take too long before you realize the one thing that connects all of us, all 7 billion people, is we're all broken. In one way or another, we have something inside of us that's been broken at some point, okay? It's probably connected to your mother, if you're like me. How many people have a mother? Show of hands. Okay, a few people. Look, we are broken. We carry shame with us. We carry a burden of shame around, and most of us feel like we're unworthy and we're not qualified to be where we are. That's just a fact of life. And once you get comfortable, like for a stand-up comedian, when I started doing stand-up, I learned first you start off, you doing, set-up joke, you write, and then you start learning that's meaningless and you want to create real art. And to do that, you start having to share about yourself. And you talk about where you're broken. And it becomes a lot easier because you understand, look, everybody else is broken too. So it becomes easier to get up there and share, hey, look, here's where I messed up. Here's where my regrets are. And we need to find ways to start doing that as marketers, okay? If we want to truly make this personal, we need to find ways to share where we're broken, where our company's made mistakes. A very easy, very simple approach to that is you talk about an innovation. You have a nice redemption story at the end. Here's an innovation that we just come up with. But you share the story of the mistakes going up to that innovation. The moments when people thought they were going to get fired for taking a bet on that innovation. Or, when the first version came out, the thing that, messed up and went wrong and they thought they were going to get fired for that. That's a very easy way to start getting into sharing and getting personal. But then once you get, I asked Jason, I said, man, what did I miss in your thing? We got in late. And I asked Jason what I missed. And he said, look, I shared this story about being a mascot, dressing up in this ram costume at the beginning, at the intro here. And I thought that was beautiful because we get to connect through, the company by hearing about Jason, and you get to know Jason a little bit better. Look, I met Jason. It didn't take me long. When we met, I knew right away he was a good soul. And if he calls me and says, can you do this, I will do it. It doesn't matter. It's because of Jason. And when you get to know people that way, and we've talked about things that we share in common and where we both struggled with life. We've talked about those things. And it changes my relationship of this company, to the brand. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. And if we all just did that a little bit more and put ourselves out there, everything would change for our brand. And it would change for us too because we'd realize we're not the only person struggling with this, whatever it is we're dealing with. Look, I'm not able to see my therapist this week, and I apologize. I'm going to have to take stuff out on you. All right, so let me share one of my biggest blunders. Oh my gosh, this was about 4 years ago. This is Matthew, who's back there right now, sitting at the wine table. Has he asked for a bottle opener? Don't give him a bottle opener if he asks for one. He's 11 now, and that's his sister Katie. And when Katie was she's 16 now. When Katie was in 4th grade, she was going through kind of a tough phase in life, and she was acting out a lot. And she'd come home, and she'd be hitting, and she'd also, if I'd ask her a question, hey, is the field trip tomorrow? No. She'd talk to me like that, and I'd think, that kind of makes me feel like you're angry at me, that response. And I was afraid she'd lose friends that way, but if she's responding to her friends. So I was trying to give her a little bit of direction. I thought I needed a little bit more discipline. I thought I was not doing a good enough job as a father, which I wasn't, being a little more disciplined with her to try to have her control her behavior. So I put more rules into place. And then she hated me. That was the response to that. And look, she's cool with me. She's a teenager. I've asked her if I could share this story. I asked her permission for it. But like I said, she's 16. She hasn't texted me back yet. But maybe I'll get I don't know, later today I'll get that shoulder shrug emoji or something like that. But what I noticed is that we would go out to places where there were we'd go out with other families. And if there were other adult men there present with us, Katie would go up and she'd be hanging on that guy. And just, it took me a while. I saw this a couple of times and just how she just died for attention from this other adult male. And I finally realized, oh my gosh, I'm creating this daughter with daddy issues. Because she feels like when I give her some, suggestions on, okay, let's find another way to deal with your anger, she hears that, I think, now as, you know what, my dad doesn't love me for who I am. And you talk about shame. Man, that wrecked me because I realized I'd ruined this woman's life. Here's this girl who's pushing some of her friends away because they think, that she's mad at them. And now she's going to be left with just hanging on guys. And I talked to a therapist, And he gave me a great suggestion. He said, look, when Katie acts out, yeah, boundaries are important. You know, you do need some boundaries. But what's most important, she's trying to tell you something. Katie's trying to connect with you there. So you know what? Just try to connect with her. Do that first. Put the relationship first. So I changed everything. And whenever she would get mad, this is, I think, 4th grade, a mud run. Whenever she would get mad, I would just, my whole goal became, I'm going to make her laugh. And sometimes she'd be upset and hitting on me and stuff, and I'd just say, you know what, I'm just going to make her laugh, and that was it. And we got to a point where we connected over that. It took a while, but we started to connect, and we got to a point where we could laugh, and then we'd talk about things, all right? And she finally got the point that I loved her for whoever she is now, and I don't care what happens. I just love her for that. What I learned, this is her playing soccer, and there's an improv principle. I took her to improv shows too. There's an improv principle called "There are no mistakes, only gifts," and it's this idea that when you screw up, you got to trust that that's going to serve you somehow. Here's the thing: this is in Appalachia. We were in Breathitt County, Kentucky. And this was last year. We did it again this year. I go on this trip. We take about 200 high school kids down there from Ridgefield, Connecticut. People who don't understand, have no idea what poverty is. We go down to Appalachia, where the living conditions are worse than many third world countries. And we'll have a project. We spend a week repairing a floor. And all this stuff is like on a trailer home or something like that, or putting a new roof in or something. Well, Katie wanted to go with me. Said, I want to go with you this year, as soon as she was old enough. And so she went. And we eat. You sleep on we get a school there, a local school there in Jackson, Kentucky, to let us sleep on their gym floor. And you're sleeping on the gym floor, and then you're eating in their cafeteria. And it's probably about this many people. And in the morning you wake up, and the adult chaperone people, they all eat kind of right over here, and they get up and take Advil and complain about their back and that kind of thing. And then all the other high school kids are over here. And I usually eat with the high school kids. I always eat with the high school kids just because of an intellectual connection. I think I fit better there with them. And at the end of the week, one of the other adults said to me, she says, you know what, I think it's adorable that your daughter eats every meal with you. And I was like, I didn't even realize that. But then that's when it kind of struck me. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought I just ruined her life. And now we're so tight that, we do all this fun stuff together. So that did remind me of this improv principle that I put this in black text. What I like to do is when I have text to make a point, I put it as the same color as the background, okay? Because then if I change my mind and I don't want to say this, I don't have to, all right? I'm the only person who knows. That's actually there's a Chinese a proverb there, which I'm sure that I wrote myself. This idea of improv, you get up on stage with 6 people, you take one suggestion from the audience, there's been no preparation whatsoever. I mean, think about doing that. I mean, imagine for a second, just if I ask, and I'm not going to do this, okay? Let me take the anxiety down. But imagine if I asked for 6 volunteers to come up here right now, and we're going to take one suggestion from an audience, and then you're going to put on a half-hour show. Think about that. Well, one of the things that makes you comfortable in taking risks to finally get up here and play is the fact that you truly believe there are no mistakes. They're only gifts. And if you get up there and you make what seems like a mistake, it's going to end up serving the story later on. And we're going to do some workshops tomorrow where I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, and also talk about how we use that to kind of change the creative culture at the company so we can start creating marketing that's actually meaningful, that actually means something to people. So we do get personal, because you're never going to get personal unless you start being, upfront about who you are and dealing with the struggles that you've dealt with in life. Let me close with one example we did at Cisco, where we kind of used some of these improv techniques, including follow the fear. Every project, every video I did at IBM or Cisco that did really well, that either won an award or got press coverage, or or got a Webby. Every one of those, I was absolutely certain that this would be the one that got me fired. And I'm not kidding whatsoever. I would have never made it without my partner, Scott Teems. And he's a film director out in Hollywood now, but he wasn't at the time. Actually, when I first got a job at IBM, I pitched this idea of doing a comedy, and they're like, dude, this is IBM. What are you talking about? And no, everybody said no, and then so I went and asked Scott. I said, look, let's just go do this. I said, if I give you $400 out of my own pocket, will you come and shoot and edit this thing for me? He said, sure, I'll do it. And I remember telling my manager at IBM about that. Oh, I'm just going to do it. We'll see what happens. You know, and I thought, oh, they're going to be excited. The new kid's going to try something, you know, innovation, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, how are you going to, who's the vendor? I said, well, I got my buddy Scott. Well, how are you paying him? I'll just pay him my own money. He said, that's a fireable offense. He's not an approved vendor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you guys ever get anything done around here with that kind of thinking? But we deal with this, you know, and if you worked at a large company or if you have customers at a large company, that's the kind of thinking. You get to this point where you just want to feel safe. Let me just get to retirement without getting fired. You know, oh my goodness. That's why I couldn't do it anymore. So here's another one that almost got me fired. And so we were launching this. This is a router. It's a ASR 9000. It's a $250,000 router. Okay, I have a few to give away to people. All right, and some coupons in the back. We were using this process called webbing, and I'll talk about this in the workshop. Okay, to come up with a creative idea. And we thought, look, what is interesting about this router? Got a group of engineers together, and we decided there's nothing interesting about this router. Okay, fine. Well, then we realized, okay, what's the launch date? When are we launching this thing? February 9th. There it is. It's a perfect Valentine's Day gift for your lover. Exactly. So we wrote this, Scott and I wrote this script, and again, I knew I was going to get fired. I was certain of it. And we created this little commercial. So this little 60-second spot that we put up on YouTube. So let's run that now.
How many ways can a man tell his sweetheart, I love you? Until now, the answer was 3. He could buy her expensive diamonds. He could take her on a tropical vacation. Or he could carve his initials into a tree, then carve a heart, and then carve her initials. But now, he can give her the ultimate expression of his everlasting affection. The Cisco ASR 9000. Because nothing says forever like up to 6.4 terabits per second. Nothing says commitment like up to 400 Gbps per slot. And nothing says I love you like 6 times the mobile backhaul capacity. How many ways can a man say I love you? The answer is 4. The Cisco ASR 9000.
So we did that about, gosh, it was 9 years ago, I think. And we got coverage in the New York Times. It was our first video to get coverage in the New York Times. It was the top of the Cisco YouTube channel for 5 years. And it just outperformed anything we ever done before. Now, let me also share, this is the video at Cisco that started the formation of the brand review team, okay? Listen, Ogilvy was so mad, all right, that I did this for dirt cheap, without a committee, with just 2 people, and they didn't get to approve it, and the CMO didn't approve it, and it got reviews. And we got comments from people. You talk about personal. People love the fact, look, when a brand will let its hair down and show that it's not always taking itself so seriously, that's a step toward vulnerability, okay? And people will say, all right, I'll relate to that, you know, okay, I'll listen now, because you're not just throwing talking points at me, okay? Let's have a conversation. The other thing is if you can make somebody laugh, that's the most intimate connection you can have in a business relationship, or at least that you should have in a business relationship. I mean, that's powerful to make somebody laugh. That's a powerful thing. And it's so scalable. We put this on YouTube and it blew up. I did the first comedy I did at IBM. Yeah, comedy, no, but that's not global. It was translated in 7 different languages. And then Jenny Rometty, before she was CEO, she required that for it was part of the onboarding process. Anybody new who was purchased and was hired into IBM, they had to watch that video. So it works and it communicates in a very powerful way. And so what I'd like to do, tomorrow we're going to do some workshops. I'd love it if you want to come and learn a little bit more about this and how to use improv and also how to use comedy. I'd love you to come with just a very short 1 or 2 line, sentence that you can share with me and you're willing to share with people and say, look, here's the problem, here's the pain point that our company addresses. Here's what we solve for our customers. Give me that, and what we'll do I hope we can cover it for every client in here, come up with an idea for a script. That you can walk out of there with this concept for a script, and in some cases we'll be able to knock out a script, a full script there for 30 seconds, a 30-second script. So we'll get into this a little bit more, but that's it. I just hope if we've spent more of our budget on trying to connect with people and trying to be genuine and maybe make some people laugh, the world would be a better place, and also our revenue would go up. Because people would say, all right, I'm starting to trust people now again. All right, so yeah, let me venture out and try these. We found with this, people who said, I will never buy Cisco again, called us, okay? And that started, and my first tactile campaign, Jason, is before I knew you, so don't take credit for this idea. The vice president who supported me on this, I was very grateful because he went out on a limb and supported me on this. I made some postcards up of some of these images. All right, and I sent him a stack of them before Valentine's Day, so he could send it up to the senior vice. He sent postcards to the senior vice president and other people like that. So the CMO, now those are stapled to the, their wall there in the cubicle or whatnot. So it's a reminder when people come into the office. What was that? What's that for? Oh, this little campaign that we did, and this thing lives on and on and on. And so I'd love it if we can all work on coming up with a little funny idea that might kick off a campaign that we could follow up and kind of make it, carry it on through the line here with something that follows up with tactile and all that good stuff. Anyway, if I don't see you anymore, I hope I can see you tomorrow. But feel free to, if you have questions or whatnot, reach out to me. And I really hope you all will push yourself. Go take an improv class. And push yourself to try something new. I hope you'll do that. All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.